Vegito, aka Flair, why Xbox desperately needs a comeback. Why do they need a comeback?
There's no getting around it. The gaming industry at large isn't looking so hot in 2024. Big budget games are not meeting expectations. Live service projects dropping like flies. Rightfully so. It's the first 30 seconds, and I cannot say enough profanity to express how I feel about live service games. So, I mean, there's layoffs happening all over the place.
Yeah.
It's bad scene all around. But Xbox has had a particularly rough year.
They have, but before he begins with this, the reason why things are just bad is because besides the money grab, they know that gaming is more of like a popular thing and is trending. So now everyone wants to put in their 2 cents. They're like, oh, that's big. So that means I could do this and they'll listen. No, we just want to play games and have fun, please. Thank you. Have a nice day.
So bad that it's got fans and developers concerned about the future of the entire Xbox brand. It's just bad news on top of bad news at Xbox, and their chief executive officer, your boy Phil Spencer, is only adding fuel to the fire with his confusing messaging. He's not making a lot of sense, is what I'm saying. In the last few years, kind of felt like everything was coming up Millhouse for Xbox. Game Pass was going to completely change how we consume games.
Well, Game Pass is still good.
I have used Game Pass a whole hell of a lot.
That's what I'm saying.
They were acquiring some
That's
really
their best
high-profile, well-liked developers. In fact, a whole bunch of them. Xbox was going to save the gaming industry, not destroy it. Now in 2024, there's a lot of people who are seriously starting to wonder if we're looking at Xbox's exit from the console business entirely, which last year would have been a crazy thought, but here we are. Hi, folks. It's Falcon, and today on GameRanx, why Xbox needs a comeback. Now, for
they
Sony's
really do,
part,
man.
Their pricing of the PS5 has been absolutely absurd.
Yes, very absurd. Another thing too is like I used to be a huge Xbox fanboy, and I just want to say that it bottles down to greed. That's all it is. But I don't even know if they should even have a comeback, honestly. I think they should just leave it to PlayStation and work on PC if this is where they're going, because they already put the word out. They're saying we're going to stop with consoles, or stop with console exclusives. So what's the point of even being Xbox? I guess they're really trying to focus on being a cloud service. I don't know.
Particularly the PS5 Pro. It's a $700 console. That's crazy. But the thing is, they're doing that because they know they're winning. They don't have to really compete that much. And in all seriousness, that gives us a pretty good reason for why competition in this sort of a market is actually super important.
And that's also another reason why we don't get Bloodborne remastered, because they don't need to.
You know, get their shit together, Sony could be held to a little bit more account. Now, I don't actually know why, but there have been people on this channel's comments that have said, I'm a Sony fanboy. That's actually very much not true. I'm completely console agnostic, and if anything, the fact that Xbox has been shitting the bed so hard that Sony thinks, yeah, we can announce the PS5 Pro for $700 frickin' dollars. This presents a very compelling case for a multi-console market being good for the industry, good for the consumer, good for pretty much everything, because while I am not going to pretend that inflation is not out of control, I also don't think $700 is even close to necessary. I know they're supposed to make money, but that is a flagrant profit-oriented
It's not even that much of a difference.
Could only happen due to the fact their competition is shitting the bed. I mean, congrats to them on those margins, but man, that's a ridiculous price. Xbox really needs to turn things around, guys. For a brief, shining moment, Xbox ruled the gaming industry. They got the Xbox 360 out a year before the PlayStation 3, and for most of that console generation, they maintained that momentum. The PlayStation 3 did eventually outsell the Xbox. At least, I think it did. The evidence is a little vague, but either way, it was a very close race, and that's a huge step up compared to what the original Xbox was doing. Xbox OG sold about 24 million consoles in total, which is nothing to sneeze at, but compare that to PlayStation 2, which sold 150 million units, and that's only as many as they reported. That number could be bigger. For Xbox to stand up to that kind of market domination and actually claim some kind of victory was pretty impressive, and it wasn't a surefire thing, but they made it happen. The whole Red Ring of Death debacle
I was about to say that.
But Xbox did the right thing, pushed through, repaired all the affected consoles for free, and boy, oh boy, did that ever cost them a shitload of money.
I was going to say that the Red Ring of Death, even with the Red Ring of Death, they were still highly successful because of the approach they took. You got a free console back, but of course that did hold them back with extra sales, like for new folks that wanted to get into Xbox 360. They're like, the red ring of death. I don't think I want to experience that. I'm just going to get a PlayStation 3. But so this is how you know if they just paid attention to the structure of their console and actually did like stress tests for the Xbox 360 and figured out and pinpointed the GPU issue from the get-go. I feel like the Xbox 360 would have been the greatest thing of all time, and they would have super fans like Sony. But because of that small little hiccup, they have a reputation. Like that Xbox did it to themselves, man. That's why you got to always double check. Every single time Sony released a console, what was it? It was pristine. It worked. Nothing broke. And I think Xbox was the only console that had that issue. And then PlayStation also had free online for the longest until someone hacked Sony's network. So that was another plus that Sony had, but it was ruined by hackers.
That's a difficult and very costly choice, but it was the right one, and it allowed Xbox to retain its market share and even weirdly build some kind of customer trust.
Exactly.
If they mess
See,
up,
that's
they're
what I mean.
going to take care of you.
Boom.
That's a good feeling. Unfortunately, they did not keep that momentum going for the Xbox One. The writing was
Because
on the
the
wall
change
from minute one
of
when
leadership.
that disastrously out of touch and
That's all I gotta
misguided
say.
E3 presentation in 2013 pretty much threatened to kill all the gains they'd made in the previous generation. It was so bad that in their own documentary about the creation of Xbox, it straight up admitted that the Xbox lost its way and that they may never catch up because of how bad they screwed the pooch on that 2013 presentation. Even though that documentary is 2 years old, the doom and gloom of its final chapter feels more at home with 2024 Xbox than 2022. And it's weird because you'd think they'd end on some kind of positive note, but the whole thing ends with everyone upset about the Xbox One. It's actually kind of amazing. Maybe they knew something that we didn't, but yeah, all this might not seem super important to the console division's current problems, but you got to know the past to understand the present. History is the substrate by which today's actions all take place on. Xbox would just not be doing what it's doing now if not for its failure to capitalize on the gains made by the 360. It's the reason
true.
they've been slowly shifting away from the console maker mindset, because in their eyes they just can't compete with Nintendo and Sony at that level. So instead of trying to do what they do, they're doing something else. And that's not necessarily a bad idea.
Yeah, it's not a
I'm
bad
not
idea.
sure Game Pass makes sense as a profit driver or even a loss leader.
At first, it didn't make sense. But now it's actually a really smart approach and probably the best thing they've made.
Unique
in a
service,
minute.
though, it's a pretty great value, and there's no denying that.
Yeah,
if
good
you
values.
could make that into a profitable business model
And
on
then
its
the day
own
one
rather
releases?
than a loss leader, I mean, I think you got a winner there. Originally, they were attempting to drive console players to buy an Xbox Series to gain access to those free games that come with Game Pass. I mean, they're obviously not free. You pay a monthly fee, but relatively speaking, they're much more close to free than they ever were. The problem is that console sales didn't correlate to Game Pass, didn't really move the needle, so they needed new revenue streams. So they started to butt up against the reality that hardcore gaming is a market that's only so big. There's only room for so much growth, especially for people willing to buy Xbox consoles. So they had to change things to keep that line going up. I think the initial goal of Microsoft's many gaming acquisitions was more exclusives in their ecosystem. That's not what ended up happening for a lot of reasons, but from everything I've read, I think that was their original objective. When they got
It just
Bethesda,
didn't work.
it was 100% to lock down the next Elder Scrolls game. I mean, think about that. They had to have thought that was the boon for Xbox. When they acquired Activision, say the same thing, Call of Duty, right? But government regulators started breathing down their necks, so they made a few promises to keep certain franchises multi-platform.
And also another thing about that too is when you acquire or you get all these acquisitions, it's like you put a like a fire underneath all the game devs' seats. You know, it's kind of like, it kind of gives them a higher expectation to meet those deadlines. And if you don't meet those expectations or meet those deadlines, you're gonna get a faulty product. And then when people are like mentally just being overworked for this stuff, they try to make the best thing, but they're not allowed to show their creative side because the decision makers and CEOs are saying, no, we got to do it this way. That's what is destroying Xbox. Like all these acquisitions, that's the reason why most of their games, their big titles, were bad, except for Hi-Fi Rush, because Hi-Fi Rush wasn't one of those fire on the butt projects. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like Elder Scrolls where you guys got to do good, or Starfield, you got to make this perfect, because look where we at now. It was trash. They should have spent like another year on it and not rushed it. Take your time. I don't think any AAA game dev is watching my streams, no. But like, one thing I do want to say though is like, give your game devs time and creative freedom. All you decision makers out there, even when it comes to regular work in retail, all you leaders out there, give them time. Like, of course you may have a deadline, but take the fall on yourself. Be like, okay, I understand that we can't meet this deadline now. Apologize to whoever was expecting it. Be like, we want to come up with the best product, and then this is our fault, we couldn't make it, you know. But we will get it to you as soon as possible. Like, it's okay to have delays because you want to make things work. But I understand that delays mean that people are waiting and they think the product will never release. So there's a fine line in between that. But still, if you give them creative freedom and you give them time to make something that they know gamers will like, then at the end of the day, you won't lose. It's kind of like Rockstar. When it comes to GTA 6, it takes them like 15 years to release a game. Good stuff takes time.
Call of Duty, right? But government regulators started breathing down their necks, so they made a few promises to keep certain franchises multi-platform. And they wouldn't have followed through on that, in all seriousness, if it made any business sense for them. If the money was there, they would have made Call of Duty an Xbox exclusive in a heartbeat. But, I mean, let's seriously talk about the idea of selling Call of Duty yearly on every console versus Call of Duty yearly on one. Duh! Game Pass as a system seller is a non-starter. Console sales are down this generation across the board, but Xbox Series versus Xbox One isn't even a rosy picture. Forget the 360. And it doesn't really matter how much Phil Spencer tries to spin the situation. It's not like Game Pass is some kind of infinite growth machine. The fact of the matter is that it just isn't. Xbox has been struggling to find vectors for growth, and they're not getting it through traditional console sales, and the standard business model of having exclusives isn't driving sales for them. The console's easily one of the weakest parts of their business right now, but instead of coming up with a coherent plan to find a way forward for Xbox as a whole, all we've seen from them is just a lot of awkward flailing. Things are just not looking great for the Xbox, and like I said, it's
no
not
one wants
exactly
to buy
like
an
Sony's
Xbox.
been doing super great with their console division. It seems like Sony wanted a live service game way past the point where no one else wanted a live service game. Concord flopped so hard. 'Cause, I mean, it's not like there aren't some cool things about it, but there's just nothing
Looking
there
at
that
this
makes
game, it
different
just
from
looks
anything
so
else, at least significantly enough
bland
to be,
and not
you know,
fun.
Sony's big thing. Maybe like 10 years ago, Concord could have been something, but it's doubtful. Like, nobody has ever really loved live service games as a whole, anyway. The entire PlayStation
even if it was 10 years ago, I probably wouldn't even play Concord. It just doesn't look fun at all. Like, look at this. Look at... Why is the health bar so big? Why does it look like this? I mean, I guess this doesn't look bad, the up HUD, and I don't know what this E is for. I guess it's capturing the point.
Games as a whole, anyway.
I don't know, it just looks so slow
entire
paced and not
PlayStation Pro
fun.
reveal also, that's generated zero heat. Don't know why they bought the money pit that is Bungie. Like, they've been doing a lot of dumb things recently too, but nobody's really seriously worried about the future of PlayStation. On the other hand, Xbox's next 5 years are a lot murkier. And to make this clear, Microsoft is fine. They are not going anywhere. They have a stranglehold on the PC market. They're way too big to fail. The gaming division, on the other hand, that's a different story. Microsoft doesn't need the gaming division.
But I think they're making a shift towards PC, and they're starting to realize that.
They're a tiny blip in their overall different story. Microsoft doesn't need the gaming division. They're a tiny blip in their overall profits. It wouldn't make sense, and it would be disastrous for the industry as a whole. Or maybe not. I don't know.
I'm just sad for Halo.
The gaming division, but Microsoft isn't exactly known for smart business decisions. You never know. Sometimes there really is no plan, and that's exactly the impression I'm kind of getting about what's going on with Xbox. After the COVID gaming boom, acquisitions were the big thing. So Xbox got Activision with no clear goal of what they actually wanted to do with it. Now we're seeing the consequences of that decision. Mass layoffs, Phil Spencer appearing on emergency podcasts saying vague things about the multi-platform future of Xbox. Real panic started setting in among Xbox fans when Microsoft started cutting studios like Arcane Austin and Tango Gameworks. Sure, Arcane put out the stinker Redfall, but that was under Microsoft's watch. Well, Tango put out one of the rare crossover hits that Microsoft desperately needed with Hi-Fi Rush.
That game
Don't
was
really
so
know
good.
why that happened. The management team heaped specific praise on the studio less than a year later, and now they cut them entirely. I mean, we're all pretty
You know why they got praise? Because they're doing good. It's always like that, bro. It's like they never see the potential at first, but then when it's starting to get some credit, Oh, it's good now because everybody likes it, I guess. Good job, guys. A year later, why aren't you saying good job when they were making the game, huh? Since you believe from them since the start.
And now they cut them entirely. I mean, we're all pretty fortunate that back in August, Krafton, a South Korean publisher, acquired Tango Gameworks, essentially saving the Hi-Fi Rush franchise. Unfortunately, Microsoft still owns it, Evil Within and Ghostwire Tokyo. It does look like Microsoft does want to remain involved by supporting Krafton and Tango in some way, but that's weird business talk, I suspect. I'm happy Tango still exists, though. But even a game studio that gave him a hit wasn't good enough. That basically puts a big question mark over everyone in the gaming division at Microsoft. And layoffs, they're inevitable after a massive...
So you're saying it doesn't matter how well you perform, that I could still lose my job? That's what's insane, bro. Like, how can you still perform well and you do the best and they still fire you?
Everyone in the gaming division at Microsoft. And layoffs, they're inevitable after a massive acquisition. Activision is huge. There was going to be some redundancy, but still, 2,550
let's get rid of the best one, guys.
Yeah,
you know, Tango Gameworks, the one that made the hit game Hi-Fi Rush, that sold us over 5 million plus copies. Yeah, let's get rid of them.
But that is a lot from what is technically one company. Xbox kind of used to be a safe haven for studios. During the early days of Game Pass, studios like Obsidian and Double Fine got positives from Microsoft with a more hands-off publishing style. They were free to make the games that they wanted, and they made them the way they wanted to make them.
Which is why they're good.
Having the support structure of a massive tech company. It was the best of both worlds, and now that entire situation is gone. Things are looking a lot more grim nowadays. Xbox is still apparently hands-off generally. They're not great at managing their studios and never has been. Sometimes that's good. Sometimes it leads to problems. If they were a little more hands-on with 343 and the Halo franchise, maybe they'd be in a little bit better place. But
exactly, that was their best franchise. Why would you throw away Halo, man? And then all the delays and then all the broken promises, man. It hurts. It hurts. Halo was always mid, but it was my favorite mid. So who cares? Like you may think it was mid, but millions of other people did not think so. Like, I would always choose Halo over Call of Duty any day.
Their flagship gaming series is kind of, what it is now. But the thing is, now they're hands off and the safety net is gone. If you're not profitable, you get cut. And I don't know what circumstances led to them cutting a studio that made them a big old crossover hit like Hi-Fi Rush. But
that's what I'm saying.
It doesn't matter how much the leadership praises you publicly, they'll axe you with little to no warning. Yeah, Tango was miraculously brought back.
Who can you trust?
The damage isn't as bad as it could have been. But that's just Tango. The other places, we haven't seen that happen. Phil Spencer, again, not helpful. He's been messaging out with a lot of corporate wishy-washy talk, and he avoids the central question fans have been asking.
For somebody that know, I used to work for Microsoft, like not the corporate, but I did work at Microsoft. There's like a store out here, and I was just a product advisor. I was a salesman on the floor, but I also try to do as much as I can. So I was helping out tech, inventory control, logistics, and just anywhere. I would teach and do programming and stuff. I would also do personal training, how to teach people how to use our products and whatnot, laptops and Office and Windows. But it was like one of the best jobs I ever had, bro. Like, they really know how to give you a great environment, great benefits, great people. But it's just their leadership choices is what destroys everything. Like, that's all I'm gonna say. I'm not gonna say no names or nothing because I don't have any bad blood with anybody at the store I was working at, but people were getting let go when COVID was happening. So a lot of us were panicking, bro, like right when 2020 happened. So that just doesn't sit right with me. And then the fact that we'll still give you above and beyond, go 1,000%, make so much profit for you, and then you still cut your workers. That's insane to me, bro. That's why I went straight to YouTube, bro. It's like, I gotta do something for myself, to have some type of financial stability, whether it's little to, I wouldn't say none, because I am still getting a decent amount, I'm able to live, but it's like, it helps, it's like you gotta have a job, 2 jobs, and then a YouTube, just to succeed in life. It's insane, unless if you're in the military, or if you're a doctor, or, IT. Like, IT positions are really competitive nowadays too, so that's a thing. But if you know somebody, you could get it. But I digress. It's just, my point is, it's crazy that you could go above and beyond for a business, make them so much profit, and then they'll still let you go like Tango.
And he avoids the central question fans have been asking, like the plague. What is the actual future of the Xbox, Phil? You keep banging on about some vague multiplayer future that the entire gaming industry simply has to move toward, but what does that mean? There's signs of trouble everywhere. The head of the European marketing went online to publicly complain about their lack of a budget compared to PlayStation. If you're an Xbox fan in Europe, you're already well aware of how much they've neglected that region in the past, but from what I've read, it sounds like it's gotten worse. Xbox's presence in Europe has always been small, but it seems like they've all but given up there. Developers are giving up on Xbox as well. The makers of Black Myth Wukong made the game for PlayStation and PC, conspicuously leaving out Xbox. This could be some kind of exclusive deal with PlayStation. At least that's what the Forbes article on the subject says.
And I want to add on to that too. I keep pausing this because this is, like I said before, this is a subject I don't know. I'm really interested in. But Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, when that released, the networking for like online battles for multiplayer for Xbox, it was like non-existent. There's only like a few Xbox players. I think Flair, he said he was able to get some battles consistently, but most people that I know online, when I read on Reddit, they have an Xbox, they're like, is anybody here not getting or anybody here on Xbox not getting multiplayer battles, because it takes me like 3 hours to get a match. I'm like, that's insane. That shouldn't be a thing. But I'm hearing that Sony PlayStation users are getting matches back to back to back to back, and it's instant. PC it's give or take. Sometimes it takes like 2 seconds, sometimes it takes like 5 minutes, but it's nothing longer than 10 minutes. And then you still got to deal with rage quitters. The thing with PlayStation is they'll rage quit and you can start a match again. But anyways, let me stop pausing.
But I haven't seen
Wukong was also a great game. I don't know why this game got hate.
That's what the Forbes article on the subject says, but I haven't seen that corroborated anywhere. It could be a technical issue because that has been a recurring problem for the system. It could be that they only wanted to develop on one platform while developing on the PC, and they just evaluated that PlayStation was more likely to make the money. Maybe they could do it with Xbox later, maybe not. I don't know. I would put a little stock in the idea of technical issues.
Dang.
The developers behind Baldur's Gate 3 ran into issues getting the co-op to work on the Xbox Series, and it led to a massive delay. And I think we all know how popular Baldur's Gate 3 is, which is kind of crazy to lead to a delay just because you can't get like one of the primarily good features of the game working. I mean, that's why a lot of people play Baldur's Gate 3. Indie devs are struggling to bring their games to Xbox as well, not because of a lack of effort, but because Microsoft's developer assistance is just getting a lot worse. It's the kind of stories you don't see on other platforms. Like, it paints the picture of a system in decline. Capcom is not porting a lot of their games over to Xbox. Their MT framework engine has problems on the platform, and instead of trying to fix it, they're just skipping the console altogether. They're not the biggest games. The MT framework is mostly remasters like Monster Hunter Stories and Marvel vs. Capcom, but these are still popular games with fans on the console, so it's telling that Capcom is just like, whatever. Game Pass isn't quite the value it used to be either. After all the ballyhoo they made about how you always get day one games on Game Pass, they took the day one games out of the standard Game Pass subscription. Now if you want day one games like Black Ops 6, you got to get the PC Game Pass or Game Pass Ultimate. If you have the standard console Game Pass, no day one games for you. Just another in a long list of ways that the Xbox consoles are being de-emphasized. The PC version of Game Pass is still just $12 and you get everything. And just to be clear, I moved to PC Game Pass because, to be frank, for consoles to get everything, you got to pay $20. It doesn't seem like they're trying to push players towards consoles. In fact, it seems like they want everybody to move to PC because that's a better deal. For the doomsayers, that's the ultimate goal, right? Xbox will no longer be a console, and it'll just be a brand. The Microsoft gaming division is going to move to multi-platform with an emphasis on PC. Maybe Xbox will live on as some kind of lockdown hybrid mini PC for use like a console, like the old Steam boxes. And like I said, this sort of thinking a few years ago would have been inconceivable. Xbox was bigger than ever. There's no way. But looking at the division now, it's starting to look like the Activision acquisition really did change them in some fundamental ways.
really seems like they're trying to go to
acquiring
PC.
Activision, it more and more looks like Activision is taking over Xbox, and Phil Spencer doesn't want to admit it. I don't mean that literally, but the culling of fan favorite studios, the brutal layoffs, the terrible customer and developer support, in a lot of ways it just seems like they're neglecting the console experience, and that's right out of the Activision playbook. This would all just be idle negativity, but guys like Phil Spencer really are not helping. From my perspective, it seems like nobody at Xbox really knows what their future is. Maybe it's a consoleless one, maybe it's not. They don't know, and they don't want to tell us that they don't know. With all this negativity swirling around the division over the last year, it would help fans to know what their actual plans are. Do they intend to announce a new Xbox? The Summer Game Fest showed a lot of promising games, but where are those games going to appear? Are they going to be on PC? Are they going to be on PlayStation? We don't have a clear answer, and I just want to emphasize how absolutely absurd that is. Like, imagine Apple announcing a bunch of software releases and vaguely hinting that they could be on PC in some kind of multi-platform future. Everyone would be like, what the fuck are you talking about? It is the equivalent of that. Period. Now, with Sony's PC push, they've been relatively predictable. There is a plan. The game comes out on PS5 first. They wait about a year and release it on PC. There's a couple of more complicated examples, like that Horizon Lego game coming out on the Switch, which is wild, but also the Switch is where the kids are. Horizon Lego is obviously an attempt to advertise the Horizon series to a younger audience, and maybe they'll get into that world and therefore eventually realize that PlayStation is where they gotta go for the real game. That's at least what I think that idea is. If it's not, if it's them going multi-platform,
that's a genius idea.
At least you kind of get their platform strategy. There is consistency. They understand the demographic that is going to play the game. Like, you can tell the point.
The
is
Lego
to make
Horizon
money.
was so
And again,
left field.
There's a plan that leads towards that end game. The Xbox, on the other hand, it's all over the place. There's just no consistency at all. The new Doom is going to be on everything. Indiana Jones is a timed console exclusive. It's confusing. And throw in the possibility of these games appearing on Game Pass or not, and the release strategy is just even more confusing. All Xbox has to do is give us some kind of clear idea of what the hell they want to do in the future,
that's what it is.
rather
You just
than a
need a
bunch
plan.
of corporate doublespeak and another tedious aw shucks apology from oafish executives. Just a straightforward roadmap of what the hell Xbox is going to look like in 5 years, because right now it just looks like a mess. The future is not set in stone. There's always room for Xbox to turn things around. It's really only gotten this bad in a year, and volatility is often looked at as a bad thing, but in all seriousness, volatility can refer to things going up as much as down. Xbox could bounce back in an instant. Anything can change in an instant. I mean, maybe Xbox will be back on top someday, and all of its current problems will be long forgotten. Anything can happen, but at least at the moment, things are not looking good. I do hope they're capable of righting the ship and getting things back on track. It would suck if Xbox left the console business entirely.
I don't want them
like,
to.
Imagine a world where Sony is the only hardcore console maker. Like, they do have a lot of recent stupid mistakes. Granted, they are not on the scale of Xbox, but multiply it by 100. If they own the entire ecosystem, suddenly those small mistakes are much bigger. And I mean, even if they aren't worse. If Sony's the company, when they mess up, it's much bigger. Everyone depends on that. So all I'm asking is for Microsoft to get their act together and stop acting like they've already lost. Because even if they're actually doing well, consumer confidence is everything in the long term. And if everyone thinks Xbox is on the way out or just isn't a serious competitor to Sony, that's where it's going to go. It's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. Xbox need to stop acting like a loser. That's it. That's the main thing here. They're not in the best position right now, but the fight is far from over if they decide to fight. Anybody who just rolls over and dies does just that. So don't, Xbox. That's all I've got to say on the matter.
I believe in that
statement.
statement.
Leave us a comment. Let us know. If you like this video, click like.
Pretty cool. Yeah, honestly, that's what Xbox needs to do to come back. Like, if they really think they're losing and no, we can't compete, then you lost already. But if you say, hey, we're going to tie up our bootstraps and put on my suspenders and my belt and get going, then it's going to be different. That's all you got to do. Just make changes. And then it takes time. Everything takes time. That means give them the time so they could be successful. That's all it is, Xbox. But hey, Vegito, Flair, cool. Thank you, man. I definitely yapped a lot on that one, but hey, that was pretty cool.